Hello everybody, in this video I want to share my opinion about wokeness in the United States and how it is functioning today. After taking this class, I do not think the issue is as simple as saying wokeness is either completely good or completely bad. My biggest takeaway is that it has become a political and cultural battle where people often stop listening to each other. Instead of encouraging discussion, people sometimes focus on winning arguments or solving real problems, making solving real problems much harder, in my opinion. This interview that happened between Michael Barbaro and Christopher Rufo was probably the most interesting part of this course for me. Throughout the interview, Rufo argues that the word woke has become connected to certain political ideas that influence schools, businesses, and potentially government. Whether someone agrees with him or not, I think the interview shows how powerful language can be, the way people define words, or maybe changes to understand an issue. One thing I noticed while listening to the interview was probably the rhetoric. I thought was interesting. Another thing is that throughout this course as a whole, we learned about ethos, logos, and pathos. And what I noticed is that Christopher Rufo uses all three of those. And he's basically representing ethos by presenting himself as someone who has undergone the issue or researched it. He has the credibility, which is represented in ethos. He also uses pathos because the topic creates strong emotional reactions for many Americans, as it is a sign of empathy. I think recognizing rhetorical strategies helps people think more officially instead of simply just accepting everything that they're going to be hearing, right? Another important part of this class was learning about the big one, and I remember doing the rhetorical analysis, was the history of it. The history was one of the biggest lessons that I learned, that today's debates did not, it was one of the biggest lessons that I learned, that today's debates did not appear right now. It just, over time, history created, it shows how American society has developed. Disagreements on race and education and the American dream, in a sense. Looking at all the historical events that have happened explains why a lot of these conversations keep happening in today's time in modern society, and they just keep happening. The class was very heavily emphasizing philosophy, I feel. Philosophy is going to ask us the bigger questions, right? About how we feel about truth, fairness, race, rights, law, a lot of those things. I think the uncomfortable yet difficult decisions that we as Americans don't want to make is what really is about wokeness, and we need to figure out what fairness really means. And different people are going to define equality differently, and which explains why we often reach different conclusions, and we all have our own opinions. Another course material that stood out was the elite capture, what we went over. I read a lot of chapters. There was something that I found when you talk about the elite, the powerful people, right? The powerful people and the institutions, they can take advantage, and they can reshape social movements, create ideologies, and reshape them for their own interests. And that's something that we as Americans have to understand. And instead of helping ordinary people, they're going to start, being connected to politics and public image, and which creates sometimes corruption among those elite. And that made me realize that even good changes and dynamics and ideas can change depending on who's involved in those elite circles. In my opinion, I think America needs less division. I think it needs more discussion. We need to sit down and we need to communicate with each other on the task at hand. I think discrimination is at an all-time high, in my opinion. And we need to work more towards equal opportunity for education, for work, for the skills that we are able to present, and we need to have a more equal ground for everyone involved. Regardless of what your skin color is, what your gender is, or what your background is. And at the same time, I also think people should be able to ask questions or disagree and voice their own opinion on the topic at hand without being attacked. And we've been seeing that a lot in modern society. And I don't know if you guys watch the news, but that's something that is very apparent in our society right now, and it doesn't go away. I am, as someone that has served in the military and it was in the government, now attending college, I have experienced many people from very many different backgrounds. I have worked with people who had completely different political and different cultures. And what usually mattered the most out of everything was treating each other with respect, dignity, and honor. And that's something we need to work on. And I think we can work on that as a common goal for all Americans. After finishing this entire course, I no longer see wokeness as a political label. I see it as a social problem that can be resolved. It can. But we're gonna have to look back at our history and our philosophy and the universal language of human behavior. We need to be kind to each other, and we need to think more critically and examine these arguments that people have, and instead of accepting them, at face value. I believe that Americans benefit most when people are willing to listen. And we may never completely agree, and we may never understand, but we will be on a better path if we just learn to work together, be kind to one another, and understand each other and communicate. And instead of becoming more divided. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much. Bye.